surveying. We'll just bounce around a little bit and see what happens. And Ken, we're going to keep you here for a little while. All right?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Okay, so let's call the roll just for the record. Today is February 13th. It's snowing, and everybody was able to drive to the state capitol and participate in this meeting.
Yes.
So we'll call the roll. John DeWolf.
Here.
Then he's got his computer working. We can hear you clearly. It's looking good. Richard Swizak.
Here.
DeAndrea here. Bob Doan.
Here.
Al Regina.
Here.
And Ken Peterson.
Here.
Ryan Thompson checked in this morning. His son is in the hospital, so he won't be here in attendance. I haven't heard from Bob Don. And Rob Lewandowski sent in a summary of the applications he reviewed, and he will not be here in attendance today. I have to admit, I was bouncing around all over the place over the weekend and last night, keeping up with the supplementals and extra paper, and did a lot of reading and rereading. And I got to tell you, like getting older, reading, skiing is one thing. Getting older, reading, my lips don't move as fast as they used to. See, so it took me a little longer. That's an old joke, but it's funny, especially from an engineer, right? So let's do a little correspondence to get some of that taken care of, because there was a lot of it, some of it more relevant than others, but I think it involves everybody one way or the other, engineering and surveying. The first one was a letter from I believe a surveyor, disgruntled, Roy Cheney, licensed land surveyor. He was questioning whether or not the town clerk has a right to deny him the ability to file a map. That was one question. And secondly, whether or not somebody else in the town hierarchy has the right to review his work before it's submitted for record. There's not enough information, in my opinion, for us to really talk about this, but my recommendation would be to direct him to the state librarian first for clarification of what the town clerk's rights and obligations are. It's my understanding that if I want to file a piece of tissue paper and it's 24 by 36, I ought to be able to do it. And I file letters, I can file a deed, I can file numerous types of documents, mortgages. So any individual has the right to file as long as it meets the criteria of the state librarian that governs the town clerks as to what can be filed and how it should be presented. So my feeling is, if you're dealing within a particular town and the town planner is concerned as to whether or not what you're filing may depict a revision of lot lines that would some way result in the ability to increase the density or affect the way something is developed, then I think the town planner has a right to know what's going into the town files. I don't think he has a right to prevent it, but I don't know that we as a board has the ability to answer that question at this point. So that's my opinion. I don't know if anybody has anything else to offer, but I would suggest that this individual inquire of the state librarian as to what the town clerk's rights and prerogative are under the statutes and regulations.
I agree with you, Tony.
So if you come across that in any way, Ken, I mean, we see it all the time in different towns. You want to file any map, it has to go through the planning board. In another town, it's if you revise a lot line, it has to go through the planning and zoning commission. So every town has a different criteria. And I see every reason why, town planner would want to know what's being filed if it relates to land. So anyway, Jane, if nobody has any objection, I would just say
That doesn't mean the town. Doesn't mean the town clerk can stop it.
What was that now?
You have a certain obligation to meet certain criteria before you file. or, you know,
Yes.
but the town clerk is not in a position to stop that.
Correct, that's what I said,
Yeah,
the town
I
clerk,
agree with you.
yeah.
I-
So he should,
I-
if he's aggrieved, he should check with the librarian to make sure that his town clerk is doing what's appropriate. And I don't see anything in this correspondence that suggests that they aren't. And if the local jurisdiction requires the town planner to review a property map before it's filed, there's no argument there. Just, that's the rule.
Yeah,
So
Yep.
he can clarify the requirements of the town clerk by contacting the state librarian for the regulations that affect them. That's it. Everything else seems to be on local code that we are not able to comment on. Is that okay, Jane? Can you write something like that to him?
Yes, I will.
The next item of correspondence was from the NCEES, item A3. It was seeking qualified professionals with a environmental engineering registration. So they're looking for input on the environmental exam. They call that the Professional Activities and Knowledge PACs. So they would, looking for volunteers to be on a committee.
Tony, what about A2?
A2 got funneled around somewhere. I didn't get to that one yet. I think I
That was,
put that.
that was the second one on the item, correspondence.
What did I do with it?
And that's the letter from NCEES on Morrow.
Oh, yeah,
Morrow-
I put that elsewhere. Hold on one second. Yeah, A2. That was my next one. Somehow I booked that in there with B1, which I think is really B2. So A2 and B2 go together, but that's the way I put it together. So
Okay.
we could do that one now. So
Oh, I
A3 was information. So let's do that letter.
So to remind everybody, Morrow is the one with the physics degree
Yes,
and then a master's in civil engineering and structures.
yes.
And that was clearly not adequate. But the interesting thing in the letter from NCEES is they mentioned that there were 16 credits of undergraduate courses as well, and there were 2 mechanical engineering courses as well. That did not appear on the application. So Morrow's application didn't show everything he has done.
So I agree with you, John. I underlined that in my review and I said, where did that come from? Because I didn't recall it anyway. He says, the individual earned a very typical master's degree program. And in this institution required them to take an additional 16. We can table it again. If you think there's an additional 16 that might influence otherwise, then show us. I
Right,
think
well-
Mr. Goodenow needs a little bit of a lesson in protocol and response. It's somewhat condescending, number one. He should have some references in there to what he's actually speaking about, and you think he would have at least included the application to justify what his comments are, but unless it was somewhere else, I didn't see it. And I don't.
Has Morrow responded, Jane?
No, I sent him NCES the letters and we just got the response back from NCES, but I haven't. Do you mean, did I send this response to Morrow that we received from NCES?
You sent a letter to Morrow explaining how we came to our conclusion. Did he respond to that letter?
I have to double check. I can't.
I think it's
I
up
don't
to
recall.
him, because our letter clearly states how we evaluated him. And if he thinks there's more to his background than we saw, then he needs to let us know. That's where I would leave it.
Correct.
Okay.
Our letter was dated January 29th. I don't know when it went out. Goodenow responds on February 5th. So there's some lag time. For all we know, Mr. Morrow's just now reading it all. So I would sit on it.
Okay. So we basically declined his application for class 4 reciprocity. It's in his ballpark now. It's up to him if he thinks we did not evaluate it correctly to get back to us. I think that's how I would leave it.
Correct. And it's an interesting point that you made, and I had done the same thing. Is like, where are the extra 16 hours? So if they're there, then we might reconsider. But he hasn't asked for it yet, and I think we've done what we're obligated to do. Any other discussion?
No,
All right, so
I agree with that.
all right, so I don't know if we need a motion, but we should do something formally to say that we've reviewed the response from Goodenow, and in context with the letter that we sent to NCAAS for clarification, and we've had no response at this point from Mr. Morrow.
Okay.
That's sufficient, what do you call it, record of what we discussed? If nothing else to be added, I would leave it at that.
Yes. Okay.
The next item was B1, a letter from someone representing Superior Walls, one David Schrenk, PE, asking for a variance from our regulations that would require Superior Walls, or also known as, what was it, SWA, Superior Walls of America, to register as an engineering corporation in order to provide engineering services. In my opinion, to start this discussion, this company, if I read this correctly, licenses technology to independent companies who manufacture and install precast products. So what is the manufacturer relying on for that? And now I see over here on the side, Mr. David Schreck is in attendance. So welcome.
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
So let's table our discussion and hear from you.
Sure. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is David Schreck. I'm the Director of Engineering with Superior Walls of America. We manufacture and install precast concrete building components, mostly basement walls, for residential and some light commercial construction. Our products are mostly made through license by independent companies, independent precasters in several states, and we're headquartered in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Might have even seen us on This Old House. We're looking, for some clarification on Section 20-306A. The way our understanding of that is that the requirements wouldn't pertain to us as a manufacturer, since we're not engaged in providing traditional engineering services directly to the public as a material part of our business. Again, we're a component manufacturer, and it's really up to the licensed design professional of a project to specify our products and make sure that all of the engineering for that particular project is under their responsibility and their purview. Now, we do produce, our manufacturers have shop drawings that are produced internally that they work from, and we do have published installation guidelines that are out there for our customers, who really are the building contractors. They're going to be using the products as part of the overall project. Now, occasionally where the engineering might come into play is occasionally we might be asked by the project's design professional, be it an architect or the engineer of record, sometimes maybe an inspector or a code official, who might ask us to verify that our products are being used in that particular application in accordance with all of our testing and published criteria that we have in terms of capacities and so forth. Might get an occasional question about a connection detail or a shear wall loading, something like that. So typically that's where I'll come in as the Director of Engineering. I'll often engage with the project's design professionals, the engineer of record, or maybe have a dialogue with an inspector to answer somebody's question or provide some information. So that's really the extent of the engineering that we'll get involved with. And so, again, the way we read section 20-306A, it didn't seem to apply to us since we're not an engineering firm whose material business is providing engineering services directly to the public. But we want to make sure that we're on the right side of the law here. So we wanted to just get some additional clarification.
So David, we have two structural engineers on our board sitting here, Richard Swezak and John DeWolf, and it would seem to me, in my reaction to this inquiry, was that you may think you're not providing services or design services directly to the public, but I don't know that that's the most significant. You are specifying, you're making specifications for your product, whether or not it's being used by the builder. He's certainly relying on you to confirm that wall panel is properly designed. So they're relying on your design expertise. The way I read this is you provide the specification, somebody else may manufacture it. But do you manufacture also?
We do a little bit, but most of it's done by, typically Connecticut would be done by one of our licensees.
All right, so you've set the specifications for the construction or manufacture of your panels that ultimately are used by the public. It's been our policy, and Richard and John can, jump in and correct me if they don't agree, but it's been our policy that if you're setting specifications, you are in fact performing engineering or providing engineering services and expertise. I don't see the reluctance of WSA or SWA, excuse me, registering as a corporation with you as a professional engineer. It's done all the time and not expensive.
No, and actually the reason for we wouldn't meet the requirement of 2/3 of the owners being licensed professional engineers, because again, as a manufacturing company, there's never been any.
But you don't need the 2/3 as a corporation.
Oh, I thought we did. I thought you needed it as a professional services firm or
One thing about our state is we have perhaps too many ways in which to register as a corporation, LLC, PC. I always use the example, Bechtel is registered as a engineering corporation, but certainly 25,000 people aren't all owners. So you can register as a corporation and you don't need all the ownership in that regard. Do you agree with that, Bob? You're usually the expert on our corporate entities.
I agree with that. You're correct.
I don't know whether or not we want to continue this, but the idea here is that from my standpoint, you are providing specifications. As providing a specification, it's directly the public is ultimately beneficiary, and the manufacturer is relying on your specifications to manufacture your product, which must have been designed. Our clients use that system, and it's unique. What if I wanted to go to 10-foot high wall? You're going to change the specification for the manufacturer of that panel, I believe.
Well, I mean, to cut to the chase, that was really the issue for us, was not meeting the requirement to have 2/3 of the ownership. We'll gladly get registered as a business, pay the fees, no problem with that. So if the 2/3 ownership requirement is not going to be a roadblock for us, then we'll go right ahead and get registered. That's no problem.
I believe that to be the case, and I believe your attorney would confirm that.
Perfect. Okay,
Right,
well, we'll work with the office and get the paperwork in.
We do appreciate the inquiry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, David, thank you. Any further discussion on that?
No, the only thing that I would add is obviously they need to have at least one, engineer who's registered in the state of Connecticut
Well, that was David.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
me.
as long as he's registered,
Oh, there you are.
that's
You're still
fine.
there.
That's all you need is you'll just need that one person who can, definitely, provide a seal that says, that this is an acceptable product. And if you're the guy, you're the guy.
One
That's
thing
right.
one thing I said, David, in my notes was why would you want to be out there on a limb all by yourself? You know, from a liability standpoint, at the end of the day. But anyway, that I believe is that's been consistent with our interpretation and policy. So I would continue to advise your attorney to investigate that. And if there's another issue, be glad to discuss it.
Sure, no, understood. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, thank you. That leads us into our next item, which was C1. It was I had requested in our last meeting just a clarification because sometimes we just don't understand how many different testing modules NCEES has, and I think this was a good summary. You know, when you look down in mechanical, you got refrigeration, machine design, thermal and fluids. So there are many options for the engineer to be tested. Electrical computer, we have electrical power, we have electrical computer engineering. So they're doing a lot. And so when we ask whether or not that particular education program is appropriate, do we have an exam module for it? And it's quite a list. So that it was purely for information on my part, and I'm glad we received it. Any comments or questions? Then we had item C2, which brings us to the next individual, which I understand he may be in attendance, and if so,
I am.
There you go.
Good morning.
Welcome, Chris.
Can you hear me?
We can. I can.
I am calling from rainy Boston. It is not snowing up here just yet, but I appreciate you taking the time to have me on here. I think I have a lot in common with Mr. Morrow, who you discussed earlier.
Correct.
I applied for a Connecticut PE license in civil engineering through the NCEES, and I was turned down, and I realized why. I get it. I don't have an undergrad in engineering. My undergrad from University of Binghamton, formerly known as SUNY Binghamton when I was there, is in economics, and I have a master's in civil engineering from University of New Hampshire. And it occurred to me after rereading the bylaws that I need 48 credits in undergraduate engineering courses. That's what it sounds like, and I'm just asking the question before I write a bunch of letters and talk and try and prove this to everybody. Is that the case, or what? Because I have 48 credits in undergrad engineering. I as part of my, before I was matriculated, UNH made me take physics with a lab, chemistry with a lab, statics and dynamics, and then they matriculated me, and that's on my transcript. Is 40 credits is on my transcript. So only 26 were grad classes. The other 14 were continued undergrad classes. And I had a bunch of classes in my undergraduate from Binghamton that all equal up to 48 credits, believe it or not. So somebody was thinking when I applied to UNH that I would need 48 credits at some point. So my question is it worth putting a letter in and explaining all this like Mr. Morrow did, or am I just going to be, I don't have an undergraduate, so I'm done?
I have a question. When
Sure.
you say you have these undergraduate credits, are they taught by an engineering school?
Well, I took the undergraduate courses. I took 20 of them at SUNY Binghamton, and I took.
Are they engineering courses taught?
Yeah,
by
well,
engineering?
engineering does the math department count as calculus, 1 and 2?
There are requirements for an undergraduate accredited engineering degree. Part
Right.
of it is engineering courses and part of it is engineering, is math and science.
Right.
It sounds like you're trying to use your math and science courses as engineering courses.
Correct.
That's not, you need, in addition to math and science, excuse me, in addition to math and science, you need that 40 some odd credits of engineering.
It
In addition-
has to be engineering. So calculus doesn't count towards my 48.
No, it counts toward the engineering, toward the math science requirements.
Okay.
Because those are in addition to the engineering. So if you
So
look at the accredited engineering degree has requirements in math and science and in engineering. You can't use the same courses for math and science for engineering.
Okay, so it requires 48 credits in engineering,
Exactly.
not engineering and math and science, just engineering.
Occasionally, we have accepted somebody with a master's, but it was a master's where they had to go back and take quite a few engineering courses to get into the master's program.
Right, and that's what I'm saying I did. UNH required me to take physics, chemistry, statics, dynamics. I'm reading them off now. Environmental engineering, fluid mechanics, all as part of the mass, acceptance into the program. And then UNH accepted the calculus, the statistics, the geology and the physics classes I had taken in my undergraduate.
But those are math and science, they're not engineering.
Correct. So it doesn't look like that I fall into this category for Connecticut, so I'm not going to proceed.
Okay.
Chris, I think what John is saying is correct and consistent with what we've always done. Oops, where did I go?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. You touched the wrong thing at the wrong time and all of a sudden you're in trouble. Anyway, I think that it sounds like UNH was suggesting that in order to continue, you had to get those math and science courses on your transcript. And that was the right thing to do. But they can't count toward the engineering curriculum.
So
I'm looking at a breakdown that where you compare what you require and what a person gets. And basically the criteria is that in math and science, you need a minimum of 32 hours to get an engineering degree. So you need 32 hours in basic math and sciences. You need 16 hours in general education. You need 48 hours in engineering, sciences, and design. And then you need, some other electives. So basically, they've broken it down into the different categories of disciplines that are required. And then you have to satisfy, a total hour requirement in each one of those disciplines. So basically, the math and sciences are their own, 32 hours. And then there's, 48 hours in engineering, and then another, 16 hours in general education. So basically you have to sort of look at the entire breadth of what you've taken.
No, I get it. I just figured I'd ask you before I went through all the paperwork, and I'm glad I did. This was 40 minutes well spent. I have my PE in 4 other states, so it doesn't really, it's not going to interrupt my career, but so I thank you for taking the time and talking to me this morning.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Understand.
Thank you for giving us the chance to talk to you.
No, it's actually very nice to meet you all. I do a lot of work in Connecticut, so we might bump into each other at some point. I'll just have to have somebody else stamp my drawings. That's all.
You certainly have great experience, so keep it up. But we just try to be consistent with everything we've done with every other applicant under our
Yep.
under our
No,
charge.
I get it. I had a similar issue when I took the FE exam, by the way. It was interesting. I had to wait a little bit more. It's not unique. I just figured I'd call. So thank you all very much.
Right.
I won't take
Thank
up
you.
any more of your time.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Have a good one. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, John, and Richard for summarizing the way we did and staying consistent. So it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. The last item on our correspondence was D1, which was presented by Ryan. Ryan asked us to just table it for further discussion. Just for the record, I've been reading the way they set up the Survey and Map Standards Advisory Committee. The last one was the last member of that committee must be the director of the legal division of the Department of Consumer Protection. And with all due respect to our legal representatives who may or may not be on the call today, somebody should tell that person to be prepared. And hopefully there is a tenure more than a month or two, which I think we've experienced throughout our tenure, keeping a consistent representative from the legal department. And I see Al smiling because he understands what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
What's the word? With tact. Anyway, I'll see how CALS comes about bringing back the momentum to create the committee again, because they have to put forth 2 members, and we're supposed to put forth 2 members. So Ryan's one, and Bob Doan looks like, no, Ken Peterson's going to be the other one. Since he's here today. All right, that's enough. We're going to table item D1 until Ryan is back with us. And hopefully his son is not too ill, but if he's in Yale, it looks like it was a pretty serious night for them. So hopefully everything works out in that regard. But now I would like to, let's take our surveying items and then we'll move to our engineering. And if I do miss anybody, let me know. But I'm bouncing around here. So we're going to go to page 6 of our regular agenda and look at 3 applicants. Although, yeah, that was it. There was another reinstatement added today on the second supplemental, but so far, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 3 applicants for Class 8 exam for Mr. Fogelman, Reed, and Stridiron.
I'll make a motion that we approve. I'll make a motion that we approve Fogelman, Reed, and Stridiron for Class 8 examination.
And Ryan Thompson offered his review this morning, and also supported the approval of all 3 applicants. So that's there's a motion to approve Fogelman, Reed, and Stridiron for Class 8 exam. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bob. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Fogelman, Reed, Stridiron for Class 8, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Now, did we have any other items on the supplemental? Yes, we did. We have one more application for surveying items, which is an application by Mr. Roland Gardner, whose license lapsed on January 31st of 2013. Under the circumstances of our requirements, he filed a new application. He listed everything or every project that he had been working on for the last 10 years, handwritten. He was not actively licensed in any other jurisdiction. So I believe he's obligated to pay the back fees. And now we can assess his application. for reinstatement. I always like to say that the purpose of reinstating an applicant who has otherwise no violations or challenges, what's the word I want to say, complaints, is to make it known that he was in fact qualified while not legally licensed or registered. He was qualified and did the work, and now he's responsible for those jobs. You can't say that perhaps he can absolve himself from any issues that may arise out of those jobs performed during the 13 year or whatever it is, 11 years since 2013. So is there a comment from anybody relative to the reinstatement of Mr. Roland Gardner, whose license lapsed since 2013? Brian Thompson came out kind of in a strong manner, wondering how and why this could possibly happen. I'll remind each other of a few years ago, we had an engineer, single practitioner, who did the same thing. He worked for about 10 years. We asked him to bring in his portfolio. You remember that, John and Bob? Right now, I can't remember his name, but he was a single practitioner. He brought in his portfolio. It was of excellent quality, and it was hard to believe that he could produce so much work in such detail as truly a single engineer. But we reinstated him.
I must have missed that meeting because I don't remember that.
Oh, he actually came in. We were in Harvard. He came in. He brought in a stack of plans and drawings. Do you remember, Bob?
Yeah, he showed us examples of his work.
Yeah, and I was just amazed. Not only that it was 10 years or more and that it had been lapsed, but the fact that the quality and the volume that he produced was impressive.
Preceding all the AutoCAD tools that you have
Yes,
nowadays.
it was exactly right. It's probably 10 years ago now that we reviewed it.
Yeah.
I wish I had not jotted that one down because I frequently reference that. It's amazing, or it was amazing to me anyway.
Mm.
So, Mr. Peterson, what have you to say?
I have a comment. I don't see it right now in my information, but I believe it was mentioned that he's had 2 other reinstatements in his past. Seems like this guy's just not learning what he's supposed to be doing.
You had 2 reinstatements prior to 213?
Yes, I was sure
I
read
didn't get the application, so I didn't see it, but how could that possibly be?
Wow, I
don't
didn't
know.
notice that either.
And now I can't find that information. But it's concerned. But I guess in this case, since he's submitted all of the plans that he has signed over the last 11 years or whatever the time frame is, I guess I'd recommend approval. I shouldn't say guess. I'll recommend approval.
I'll second that, Ken.
Does he have to pay back fees on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's because he was not working or licensed in another jurisdiction, and was our policy, or that was what was it? A change in the regulations it was a regulation change that allowed us to do that. So in this case, because he worked in Connecticut, he filed the application. He's obligated to pay the back fees to be reinstated, and that should be carefully watched.
He has over 50 years of experience.
Yeah.
And he's a Paul Smith grad. Do you know him, Tony? He seems like he works down in your area.
It's close by, but to be honest with you, I don't know him. No, I don't. I know the name, but I've never met him, and I guess periodically we come across it. Actually, I did have the application. I'm looking at it. Yeah, I had it stapled to the other issue. Let's see, where would we have seen that he had a, I don't know, 50 years of experience? Where did you see that he had a prior statement?
It was in the
And that's fine.
email when I sent the, oops, sorry. It was in the email when I sent the supplemental documentation.
All right, I may have, well, I did miss it, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't have that at my fingertips. I don't know that it's relevant. We're talking about the period now between 13 and today. He's documented what he worked on. He seems to be qualified. He works out of Wilton. There's the motion to approve and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Let's make sure he gets it right up to date, Jane, and keep us posted if it doesn't come in shortly, huh?
Yeah, he's all set. He's already paid all the back fees.
All right, that's good. Okay. So we'll move on to the next item on our regular agenda. Is that where we are right now? Let me make sure. Okay. I gotta sort out a few things here. Okay, I'm ready to go now. We're back on our regular agenda. I called it the primary agenda. And on page 3 of our regular agenda, we had a list of candidates who passed and took and passed CBT exams. We had 2 chemical, 1 mechanical, and 11 civil. It's a point of information, so no action is required. John DeWolf reviewed the next applicant for class 1 exam, which was Steve Harris.
Okay,
And that's on page 3, but you want to continue? Oh, that's good. That's only one. Permit class 1, both exams.
yeah. I move approval.
Second,
I'll second.
Thank you, Al. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. John reviewed the next group of applicants for class 1 exam, credit part 1. Azalin through Yalda on page 4.
And Lee through, yeah. I move approval of the entire category.
Thank you, John.
All meet the requirements.
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
Thank you, Richard.
Al. Give it to Al.
I was waiting for you.
No.
Well, if I look down to make a check mark and then I look up and I see a purple line, whoever's still on is the guy who gets it, see? But at that time, Richard, you won.
Yeah, well, I'm the second guy. That's why, if Al was the first guy, the second guy is always later than the first guy, so.
All right. Any further discussion on first and second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Now, I reach over to my first packet. And I reviewed the next group of applicants, Atkins through Crump. We had only one that was not model law engineer, so that's all good. And everyone else is proven to be currently licensed and well employed with good experience. So my recommendation is to approve all Atkins through Crump on page 4 for reciprocity. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
So move.
Thank you, John.
Sorry,
Second.
Bob.
Thank you, Robert. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. The next group of applicants for class 4 reciprocity was reviewed by Bob Doan, Culbertson through Gulliver on page 4.
All but 3 were model law engineers. 2 had equivalent degrees, foreign degrees, and 1 was not equivalent because it was missing 6 hours of general education. But like many foreign degrees, he had over 70 credits in engineering and et cetera. So I make a motion to approve the entire group from Culbertson to Gulliver.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll second.
Thank you, Al. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Culbertson through Gulliver on page 4 for reciprocity, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carried. And John DeWolf reviewed Haberl through Jean for reciprocity on page 5.
Okay, the first 4 model law, and I guess in a sense, the 5th one is Jean has a bachelor's of electrical engineering technology, but a master's in electrical engineering, so he's fine. So I move approval of all 5.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Robert. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Rob Lewandowski reviewed the next group of applicants. He found them all to be, to have all the education requirements and the experience. He had 3 technical degrees, Curie, Magsam, and Mayorgas. Each of them, Curie had an evaluation which was excellent, and the other 2 had 20 and 23 years experience under the technology degree, which I still have a hard time understanding why there's a reluctance to approve, especially with experience. So anyway, the recommendation by Mr. Lewandowski is to approve all applicants Kelly through Perry on page 5 for reciprocity. Is there a motion to accept his recommendation?
So
I'll
moved.
make that motion, Tony.
Thank you, Robert. And Richard, I took your second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Kelly through Perry for reciprocity, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Then Richard, it's your turn from Rao to Sprinkle on page 5, applicants for reciprocity.
I'd like to first look at Annette Rivera. She has a degree from Puerto Rico, the Polytechnical University of Puerto Rico. She has a BS in electrical engineering in 2003. And she does have a master's in robotics from Worcester Polytech in 2013. But I guess the only thing the problem that I have is that she registered online and we don't have any original transcripts on any of her, I guess, background or testing. All she did is submit copies of letters that she has. And although I'm pretty sure she didn't change her name or, didn't, use somebody else's transcript and, change the name on it. It's just that, I'm not sure whether we should be looking for original transcripts of, all the documentation that provides the fact that they did pass the, the fundamentals and professional, and I guess her fundamentals and, principles of engineering were from Puerto Rico. So
Puerto Rico is one of our standard jurisdictions, though. I mean, it's not a foreign country.
right. No, but I guess, what normally what we do is we get, the official transcripts or the official documentation from, the entities where they passed it. And even though we all have our copies, we get the official documentation, and with the official documentation, it's easy to say, okay, it's her, it is, everything that we expect to see. So I'm not sure, whether we should, because I know that, online it says, you have to contact the university to, have them send you your transcript. It doesn't say include your transcripts that you have in your file type of thing. And that's what I find. And I guess, she works at Pratt and Whitney right now, and she has, I believe, over 11 years of experience. And I guess in her endorsements, we require, one supervisor, but I'm not sure if she's a supervisor, so she doesn't have a supervisor, or at one time she must have had a supervisor before she became, in a position of being a supervisor. But, and again, I'm not sure if I'm being nitpicky or whether, we should get, the proper documentation or the official, documentation
So
from
what-
the entities.
So what you're saying is we don't have, again, normally we get a copy of a transcript from the university or the education, right? And so
Correct.
you're saying we don't have that this time.
Right.
Or we
She
have
has
a cop-
copies. She has a copy of her transcripts, but it's her student copy, I believe. Let me see.
Oh.
I don't see what the problem is. This is class 4, and if it's been
Right.
verified that it's a transcript, I think that's, I don't even want to see all that stuff. As long
I
as it's
agree.
verified.
All right. Right. I was just sort of, because like you said, normally we look for, some, official documentation rather than, and then again, I don't expect that, it's not her and that, all the documentation is real. It's just that, do we just take a person's word on it, or do we look for the official documentation? And if we,
Do you have the NCEES?
she's not an NCEES participant.
Okay, I get it. Maybe we ought to see it then.
Yeah, she's not an NCEES participant. She basically, she did it online, and she submitted, her copy of her transcript, her copy of her, fundamentals and principles of engineering, her copy of,
So she doesn't have an NCEES record.
correct.
Okay.
Right. If she had an NCEES record, this would be a moot point.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
And so, and
so
that's
Jan,
why I'm
Jan, this is an
hesitating.
issue.
I'd be
You-
happy
you
for
ver-
that for official evaluation, for official copies.
All right, make that motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that, and again, and I don't know if we recommend that she, gets registered by, in NCEES, so that, they have, all her documentation, so that she doesn't necessarily need to go through this, system again if she wants to get registered somewhere else. But so, I'll make a motion that we get some official documentation for Annette Rivera to, evaluate her application.
Want an NCAAS record.
Right,
of the
or
exam.
an NCAAS record, right, correct.
Right. All right, is there a second?
Second,
All right, John, thank you. There's a motion to advise Annette Rivera to provide us with a NCAAS record of the exams. Is that right? Of the exams.
And there's transcripts and everything else, you know,
And- okay.
all the, you know, the documentation.
We recommend that she apply for and obtain an NCAAS record and,
Correct.
and transfer to us.
Correct.
Okay?
So
Any,
just so I'm clear, if she's not willing to go through all of that, she would just need an official transcript from regarding her education and then from Puerto Rico to verify the exams, correct?
correct.
Well, I guess I do have, there is, you know, again, it's just a copy of, you know, I guess the
So
controlling, the registration entity in Puerto Rico that says that, you know, she is registered for the year of 2024. But again, it's just that her copy of their, you know,
It's a fair
documentation that they,
comment. We need an NCAAS record to verify the exams. And we normally receive the official transcripts from the university.
right. So, I mean, if
Well,
we got the original or official transcripts and the official documentation, then it would be fine.
Right. So we require official transcripts from the university and
Right.
verification from NCAAS of passing the exams. How's that?
do we need an official transcript or do we just need the university to verify that she
Well,
has?
the university should verify it. I mean, she has her
Yeah.
student copy, I believe, you know, it says on it, student copy, you know, on her transcript. So it's a copy that she received. But normally what we required the official transcript from the
I
universities.
thought we required verification from the university, not the actual transcript.
Right. Okay, that too. But normally we get them both.
So we
Okay.
require verification of graduation from the university and verification from Puerto Rico of passing the exams.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay?
So, and just so that I'm clear, if I send her both the forms that we have, the verification of education, and then the verification of the exams on our forms, that's acceptable?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay,
Thank you,
just want to
Jane.
make sure.
Yeah,
Right.
because then if the university returns those, then we have, their verifications, correct.
Or the alternative is the NCEES.
Correct, exactly. That we should throw that in as an alternative. It's not a requirement that she has to do NCAAS, but as an alternative, it would prevent future questioning of things.
Okay. All right. So all those in favor of the motion to advise Annette Rivera as discussed, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So that leaves us with Rao through Rice, Rios, and Rubero through Sprinkle.
And I'll make a motion that we accept the remainder of the applications, recognizing that Rao is, has a degree from India and he's lacking 10 hours of general education. Reese is from Brazil, but his education is equivalent. And I guess the only thing that we need to do is verify Rao, his fundamentals and his principles of engineering from Kansas, in terms of he has other states that, more or less, refer to the Kansas, fundamentals and, principles of engineering. But I didn't see an official documentation from the state of Kansas that he passed the test in that state. So with that said, I'll make a motion that we accept all the applications.
To a second?
Second,
second.
Thank you, Robert. All those in favor of the motion to approve Rao and Rice and Rubero through Sprinkle, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Now, the next group of applicants for Class 4 reciprocity were reviewed by Ryan. And as I read his note to me early this morning, he didn't mention anything about those. Oh, there he goes. Okay, I apologize. It was. For the 5 applicants I recommend approval of all 5. Those 5 are Stark, Stewart, Stitcher, Story, and Toomer. Is there a motion to accept Brian's recommendation of approval for those 5 applicants for reciprocity?
So move.
Thank you, John. Second, thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And I believe that completes our primary agenda, which leads us then to our supplemental agenda. And Jane, you sent another supplemental this morning, but you referenced that it might be a 5th individual on reinstatement. But the original or the prior supplemental was in fact, did in fact include 5 names. So there was nothing new on the supplemental that was sent this morning. Agreed?
Yeah, that's how I saw it, Johnny, also.
Okay, good. So we have 5 applicants for permit class 1 credit part 1 that John DeWolf reviewed.
Okay, I'm going to recommend them all. It's just interesting that the first one has a engineering degree in acoustics and music. And I did ask Jane to check that it was an accredited degree, and indeed it is. Looks like an interesting degree. I went back and looked at it. Being design of concert halls and all that. So, and Levesque has a BS in 1995, experienced 3 years, 1 month between 95 and 99, and then a gap in another year beginning in 2023. Obviously, she took a break, but she has 4 years. So I move approval of all 5.
Second?
Second,
Thank you, Bob. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So in other words, you gave Kristen time off for family.
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
that's a tougher job.
I was going to ask a question, what happened in that year? And then I realized female,
Yeah.
and it seemed obvious. And she has the experience. Everything's fine.
Now, what would have happened if Mr. Michael took 4 years off for paternity? What would you say then? You see,
Okay.
John, you gotta get up to date, man.
I know I do. I know I do.
All right, the next group was for class 4 reciprocity, and I'm going to take them individually because Jane offered me a challenge, and I'm going to accept the challenge. So the first one was Stephen Dean. He has a model law engineer, RPI, electrical engineering, licensed in New York. My recommendation is to approve Mr. Stephen Dean. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Robert. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor of the motion to approve Stephen Dean, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now, the next applicant is Mr. Mustafa Igdilioglu. Igdilioglu. How'd I do, Jane?
She's
She
muted.
said I couldn't do
Oh,
it.
there she is.
way better than I could do.
But I would point out in his evaluation, following up to what Bob said a little while ago, this applicant had, I think, hold on a second. 159 credits.
Wow.
Wow.
And all, very good, amazing. So it compares favorably. Therefore, my recommendation is to approve Mr. Igdiliaglu for reciprocity. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Richard and Al,
Yeah.
all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Then, Mr. Lewandowski reviewed the next 5 applicants, the next, whatever it was, 4 applicants for reciprocity. Rob found them all to be good experience. There was one technical degree, 13 years experience following the degree from University of Maine. So his recommendation is to approve all 4, Gertie, Massaria, Mary, and Pope. Is there a motion to accept his recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Robert.
Second. I'll second.
Thanks, John. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve Gertie through Pope on page 1 of our supplemental, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And Richard, you reviewed the next 3 applicants for reciprocity, Schneider, Waters, and Zhang.
And I'll make a motion that we approve all 3 of them. And I was reading the application from Zhang, and I was impressed at their accomplishments. Oh, and I believe, hold on. Yeah, she has over 34 years of experience, and I'm looking at it, and I was amazed at the accomplishments. And then there was a section where she took 4 years off for family. And I says, oh my God, it's a woman. And I'm over there, wow. She must be like really, really a superwoman. Let me tell you, she was doing all this stuff and I'm over there, oh my God. But anyways, it gets back to what our previous discussion about taking time off for families and how impressive that is. That we should encourage, the female gender to excel in engineering. And Zai definitely, like you said, I didn't even realize it was a woman when I was reading everything. But there should be no real separation. But anyways, I digress. I'll make a motion that we accept all 3 applications.
I'll second.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. The next group is class 9 license passing FB. Point of notice, a variety of schools, purely for information. The motion to approve those applicants for a class 9 license.
So move.
Thank you, Robert. Second, John?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. John DeWolf reviewed an applicant for class 10 license, McDuff.
Yeah, the name should be
Yep,
reversed.
Sean McDuff, yep.
Sean McDuff. And it's a Bachelor of Technology with 8+ years of experience, so I move approval.
Second.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor of the motion to approve Sean McDuff with a technical BS and 8 years experience, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And continuing with our reinstatements on page 3, we had Chapman, Gerard, Missile, Whitney, and Yingshu. And going through those, we would say that Whitney and Gerard, Gerard need to pay fees because they were not continuously licensed in another jurisdiction. Is that the way I interpret the NA?
No, that just means it's not required because they still have to pay the back fees, but they're somewhat recent. Like one expired in 2022 and the other one was 23.
Okay, so under our regulations, within 5 years, we shall reinstate, right? So I see what you said there. That's why it didn't apply. Okay. So they were all reviewed by Bob Doan. Mr. Doan?
Yes. So Thomas Chapman, his license expired in 2016. He wasn't working in the state. So I went back and reviewed his application because he had to resubmit an application. And he's a non-model law because of his non-ABET degree. And I'll just briefly read through. He has a Middle Georgia College is a non-degree. Georgia Institute of Technology is a non-degree. DeKalb College is a non-degree. Kennesaw College is a non-degree. Georgia Southern University is a bachelor's in biology. Jackson University is a non-degree. This guy has a degree in biology. And I desperately went through all the other degrees to see if I could find an engineering course. Absent. It must have been approved back in 1988, maybe. That's when he took his principles and practice from Florida. And so his license has expired. We get to review his application, and his application is woefully short in education. What do we do?
I don't think we renew it. I think it's clear. It's if he doesn't meet today's requirements, we shouldn't renew it.
Correct.
Okay. I make a motion then for Thomas Chapman to not reinstate.
I'll second that.
Just curiosity, what is he doing now?
He is, I'm sorry, Al, the only thing I have printed here is all the transcripts for the non-degrees, and I did not print his experience, but he had, he was even doing some electrical and structural work, but it's out of state, obviously.
Let him continue to work out of state. Just based on, the two applicants we had today in the same discussion. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And when was he licensed in Connecticut, Bob?
I think I checked. I wanted to make sure I didn't approve it. But I think it was around 1988, John. Maybe Jane can check to see when his original license was approved. He has 40 years, 7 months experience is listed.
It looks like it was 2000. Hold on, I just looked at it. January of 2000.
How did he get approved then? It must have been reciprocity.
Let me check.
We were following the old law back then.
Oh,
That's what happened. And I mean, I was not happy at that point, and Andy was not happy, and it took a while before we really had sat down, I think.
And just as a FYI, he was, let's see, he lapsed in
I
09.
lost you,
He
Jane.
was reinstated in January of 2011.
Could you say that again, Jane? We didn't hear it.
Yeah. Yep. So he lapsed in January of 2009 and was reinstated in January of 2011.
Oh, he should
We
not have
shouldn't
been,
have done it.
should, yeah, and that would have only been a 2-year lapse, John, so we would not have received a new application.
Right. That's when, I just mentioned it a little while ago. If you reinstate within 2 years, you shall be reinstated. You're just like,
Right,
no qualifications at that point.
yeah,
So you blindly say it's applicable by our
Yeah.
statutes and regulation, but that didn't account for what we now know. So that's it. It's become to our attention that you don't have the qualifying undergraduate education. Therefore, under our current
Tony, you froze.
Huh.
Too much snow in Greenwich.
Yeah.
Timer ran out.
He's like Jack Nicholson, who he froze to death. Uh-oh. It's almost like he has to.
Someone got his number? Can you give him a call?
Oh, here he goes.
No, not yet.
I know
Now
they're
he's
getting a
muted.
lot
Tony,
of,
you're muted. You're
No,
muted,
he's absolutely
Tony.
froze solid as if the connection dropped.
Yeah, I was
Blame-
using my Italian heritage and I banged the table for emphasis and it shut down on me. Anyway, my point was that we now know, based on our current policy and regulations, that he doesn't have the qualified education. He's been working somewhere else. We're not going to reinstate it now and double up on our error.
Yeah.
Yep, I
I
agree.
think we could also say that times have changed because so much more is done on the computer today. And we need to be more careful about having the qualification.
So the motion basically is that
I made a motion to not reinstate.
right, based on lack of qualifying education and
Correct.
okay. Any further discussion or anything to add? Except that the undergraduate education does not meet our current standards of licensure.
I think that's the correct way. Current doesn't meet our current standards of licensing. I think that's the key.
Any further discussion? I'm taking a couple of notes. All those, so all those in favor of the motion to deny reinstatement because the undergraduate education does not meet our current standards for licensure.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
in favor of the motion, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I had Robert as the author, and who seconded that? I'm sorry, I didn't mark it down.
You don't
It
have.
Could have
I'll
been
second.
me.
Al.
Okay.
Give it to Al.
Give it to Al.
Okay, so that leaves us with Gerard, Missile, Whitney, and Yingshu.
I make a motion to approve all 4 for reinstatement. I have one question. The license number for Michael Gerard is PENN period 8408. What's the PENN period? I don't remember professional engineer, but the NN is,
I don't know why there's an extra N. Should be just PEN.
okay.
So there's a motion to approve though, right, Robert?
Yes, motion to approve all four for reinstatement.
Second?
Second,
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. While we're on initials, PENN, on one of mine, Mr. Igdiliaglu, he had an IRPE. I don't know what the IRPE designation was in that little circle. We would have expected to see MLE. So is that an international review? I don't know if anybody's ever seen it before.
I haven't.
So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But that finishes our supplemental agenda, which leaves us to my oversight, because I think over in the corner, I once saw Janita, but I don't know that she has anything to offer today. But I don't see her
does
name
not.
there now.
Yeah, there's no more reports, so it's just
Okay.
the minutes that we need to review.
All right, that's good. Okay, so we do have the minutes from January 9th. And I didn't see in my review, other than asking for the testing modules, if there were any additions or corrections. So I will ask the board members, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes dated January 9th, 2024 as presented? If not, is there a motion to accept as presented?
So moved.
Second,
Thank you, John. Thank you, Robert. All those in favor of the motion to accept the minutes of January 9th as presented, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Which leaves us to one simple item of business left.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Albergina.
thanks,
Your second. No second?
Second.
Richard, you seconded. It's still snowing down here. So
Snowing up here also.
I hope it rains in about an hour.
Me too.
We were skating along, not literally, but figuratively, and now we got snow on the last day. Anyway. All right,
Take
we
care.
are coming back because our ever efficient
So
Miss Jane always lists the next meeting date. And now I have to find it.
we'll just continue with Ryan's.
Ryan will be on the
absence.
next agenda.
Okay.
But where did I always see my list of next meeting dates?
12th of
March
March.
12th will be the next.
March 12th, thank you. Let's try to list it. Make sure when I go back to my computer, it's there, March 12th. All right, I think we had a productive meeting
Take care.
today. And a very accommodating individual who was looking for advice and understood the significance of the action. And that would be Mr. Kohler.
yes. That was a good experience.
As was David Schrenk, for the walls. All right. Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
See you in March.
Hey,
See you in
Thanks,
March.
everyone. See you in a month.
Okay,
Yep.
bye.
take care, everybody.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.